Assignment. I got a request from a number of you saying they were unable to submit. And from what I can see, you people are submitting late. So kindly try and do the assignments during the class hours and not after hours so that you don't run into delays. And then a couple of things also on the assignment. And I asked a question, number 3, give a brief description of your final project. What I actually wanted from you was just a service charter and nothing complicated. And the other question, I think, was number 4, process to ensure customer satisfaction. So I was just asking about certification of the client. So kindly you people look at your notes and see how you can correct those. Okay, so for today's class, we are going to look at, we're going to continue with the initialization, and we're going to look at project identification and screening. So if you remember the life cycle that we had actually looked at last time, we had various steps that were required to be taken to actually do your project. So the first one was the initialization. Then that was followed by the planning. What is planning? Are we still together? Class?
Yes, we're together.
Okay. It's nice when you talk so I know you're together. So we looked at initialization from the life cycle, then there was planning, execution, then the control loop, and closure. So we are still in the initialization phase, and we're looking at product. And now today we're going to look at project identification and screening. Project selection governs the success of your project. So the degree to which the project is successful is dependent on the selection of the appropriate project. So if you select a difficult project, that means your ability to succeed becomes difficult. If you select a project that is doable or a bit more easier, your ability to success becomes easier, which also has a time factor to that. At this point, a number of projects have been selected at the initiation stage based on different characteristics, and now we are in the process of selecting the best one to go forward with. For example, imagine you're going to the supermarket and you're in the detergent section. So you have criteria as to what kind of detergent you want to take. It could be the brand, it could be the quantity, or it could even be the price of the detergent that you want to check. So those are the kind of things that you want to check when you're actually selecting our project. This process of project selection is divided into 3 main parts. So that is the identification of the project. Once we've identified the projects we want, we start doing an appraisal. Then once we're done with the appraisal, we select the project. So we are going to look at these 3 steps in a bit more detail. Project identification is the process of searching for new ideas, and this involves 3 steps. So for us first to identify new ideas, first we have to have an objective. We have to define what we want to accomplish or what we are trying to do. So objectives can focus on money or it can be philanthropy, such as disaster relief. The second part is brainstorming alternative solutions. So definitely when you're at this point, we are getting a number of ideas from the team. And there are various things we look at, such as the market trend and our SWOT analysis, where we look introspectively in terms of our strength and weakness, and extrospectively in terms of what threats and what opportunities are there. Other constraints can actually be looked at the point of brainstorming. Then the final part of the project identification would be shortlisting candidate solutions for detailed scrutiny. So the flow of the project identification looks like this. So first, we have to identify our objective. Then we do our brainstorming, where we look at our strengths, weaknesses, our threats, and our opportunities. Then after that, we list the projects that we want to have a look at. Whenever we start a project, it is always motivated by something. Because our project is a means to a goal or objectives, but there's always a motivation behind it. Projects could be individual, or they could be organizational, or they could be national and global. Project identification is catalyzed in response to specific goal or objectives. So if there's no motivation, you're highly unlikely to do a project. And if you start it, you're highly unlikely to complete it. So there need to be a motivation factor for you to actually do the project. And having a goal is a motivation factor to actually do a project to enable you to reach that goal that you're targeting. Depending on the project, you can have various objectives. So for example, it might be to build a home. That would be more in a personal project. It could be also organizing a wedding. It could also be increasing profits, which means that you are in a business for profit. It could also be to minimize threats of losses. So you might be in a situation in which that the market is becoming a bit unstable. So you want to try and minimize the losses during that instability time. It could be also because of it could also be because to become more competitive. You might reach a point where by the products that you're selling might appear stagnated. So you need to do something to actually make them competitive. To provide help after disaster, so that would be a philanthropic kind of objective or project. To train people in new areas, there could be new technologies in which that you need to invest in, so it could be training. It could also be to reduce pollution. You could also be looking to actually becoming an entrepreneur. That could actually be objective. So these are just some of the objectives that you might actually look into. Of course, there are more. So SWOT analysis is the analysis of your strengths, your weakness, which is looking within, and your opportunities and threats, which is looking without. And your analysis of this is actually influenced by various factors. One of them is objectives. Then the other one is the experience. Another one is the resources available to you. Environmental pressure is also a factor. It could also be to provide help after disaster, and government policies could also affect those. So, for example, experience will be a strength in your ability to actually do a project. So, if you're not too experienced in a particular project, you'll find it very difficult to execute or even complete that project. So, that would be a strength that you look into. Okay, so we can further look at strength, as I've said, experience and expertise. So the more experienced you are and the more expertise you have, the better your chances to actually do that project. We did discuss this even in terms of you people selecting your final year project. One of the things that you look at in selecting your project is, do you actually have the technical expertise to undertake that particular project? So the more experienced you are, the easier it is for you to actually meet your goals. Another strength could be financial position. So of course, it's a double-sided sword. It can also be a weakness. So if you have finances to actually do the project, it eases your ability to actually do this project. There is also some dynamic last time, and that was the triangle, where there was time and cost and resources. So, for example, if your finances are low, that means time can be increased and resources can be increased for you to enable you meet the goals. And of course, if one or the other can't be increased, it also limits your ability to actually meet your goal. Capital raising capacity is another point to consider as strength, which is related to finances. So for you to have to start a project, you need capital, and depending on the size of the project, that capital might be a significant chunk that you need to actually start the project. Some expertise or some element of the project you might need to collaborate. So industry contacts and network might be key in the success of your project. Then of course there's also foreign collaboration, especially if you're looking to spread out your nets to a wider territory. Okay, weakness. One of the weaknesses is when there is new technology that you're unfamiliar with. It might require you to actually do some training before you can actually tackle certain projects. So you have to be familiar with the technologies. And inability to raise huge investments. So your inability to raise huge investment will limit the kind of projects that you can do in terms of the cost out for you to execute the particular project. Then lack of training personnel, as we mentioned, similar to the strength, but not the opposite. Then now in foreign collaboration, now we are looking at dependency. So in the strength, it was interdependent, where you're working together to achieve a certain goal. Everyone is benefiting. But as a weakness, foreign collaboration could be you're depending on somebody. So that means if they pull out, you are stuck. Opportunities. So some of the opportunities you could look at is the emerging technologies. So that is how can you leverage technology to actually achieve your goals. So for example, you might be online business or online shop. So for in our case, like in Kenya, one of the technologies that you can actually utilize would be something like bank cards and so on and so forth. Another one would be new product with new markets. So sometimes you're trying to look for, see, this is more of a blue ocean strategy. So you're bringing a new project and the market is new, it has never seen that project before, as opposed to a red ocean strategy where the market is flooded with a particular project. So here you're looking to be the first to market so that you can capitalize on that market as fast as possible before it becomes saturated. Then new processes for better features. So sometimes you need to develop a process for your particular product, which would actually improve the features that are there in. Then special financial schemes. So these are more like loans that you could actually get from banks or loans that you could actually get from a financial institution to actually enable you to be able to do the project. Because it's not always that money is available. Sometimes you actually need to borrow some money to enable you to actually achieve the goal that needs to be achieved. Then, of course, there's government and other incentives. So depending on what project it's being done, for example, there was a time the government was looking to actually incentivize people to actually do tech project, after which they'll actually get what we call a tax breaks for 10 years. So those are incentives to actually get people to actually do tech project, which gives you a break. So that means financial gain, but at the same time, it also benefits you financially. Then threats. One of your key threats would actually be competition. So if it's not you and you're not the first one, it is highly likely that somebody else doing something similar. Or even if you've been in the market for a while, you've definitely been joined with some other people who are making similar product and they might have something slightly different that gives them a competitive edge. So one of your threats is called competitors. So how are you going to compete with them to actually uh, keep a hold of your share of the market or even increase your share of the market? Poor state of economy can be a threat. So if there is no money in the economy, there's no cash flow in the economy, that also limits your ability to actually do a project, because especially if it's for-profit project, because at this point now the purchasing power of the clients has been reduced. So it becomes very difficult for you to actually do any projects and make a profit. Then if you are using outdated technology, you might be overtaken by newer technologies. So that is something to watch out for. Make sure that you're using the latest technology especially those that make your clients work easier. So, because people like, so the easier it is to do, the more the clients are likely to drift to it. So you have to make sure that you use the newest technology and technology that makes it easier for them to do anything. Then unprofessional management skills. So if there is no professionalism, that becomes a threat. I do remember we mentioned this during our last lesson about micromanagement. When we look into leadership and management more, we'll look at this better. So you don't want to micromanage. You have to make sure that people understand what they're doing and they're doing it according to the job description that you've given them. So you're working with professional people from the management to the entire team, which will enable you to actually achieve your goal. Otherwise, it will be chaos where no one knows what they're supposed to be doing. Then, of course, another threat is new product and services. And now this is from external sources. That would be probably your competitors. There might be a new product that they've released to the market or service, and it is threatening your share of the market. For example, before M-Pesa, we used to send money by courier, especially to home. And now you see with M-Pesa, that business has pretty much died because you can just easily send the M-Pesa to your grandmother at home, and they just go to an agent and actually withdraw the money. So you don't, which is much faster and much secure, because even with courier, it will take time to get there. The package could get lost, and so on and so forth. Now, sources of new product ideas. So this could come from the marketing and sales department. So they actually interact quite a lot with the clients, so they are a good source. So of course, in the marketing and sales department, you might be selling a product. Then along the interactions, you realize that the clients seem to be interested in a particular feature of a product or a particular product that you don't have. So so of course there, that one you highlight that. This can also just come directly where the customer give you direct feedback on some of the product that they're actually using and the feature that they actually want. Then of course research and development. This is partly influenced by market trends, so the market and sales department might play a factor here. And sometimes it might be actually something completely new based on some new technology, so they're looking into ways that they can actually utilize it. Another source is actually top management. So top management could decide on a particular direction that they want the company going based on the visions that they actually have for the company. Then the production department, particularly when they're doing when they're looking at the processing of the products, they can actually come with new ideas on how to improve the processes and at what angle can the product be improved. Now let's look at brainstorming. Brainstorming is usually a group activities, and it is designed to create. It's designed to catalyze creativity among individuals. It is actually a good means of generating new ideas and it focuses on uninhibited participation by the group. And this would mean all ideas go. There is nothing like a stupid idea. At this point, we are not analyzing the ideas. The idea is suggested and the idea is taken. Then we will actually look at we will analyze the idea later. So that is similar to the next point, list ideas without suppressing creativity at source. So the reason you don't want to inhibit this is you also want to encourage creativity. So let people bring as many ideas as possible. You don't have a situation whereby it's only one or two people who are bringing ideas. Because the last time I brought my idea, you shut it down. So I'm not too interested in bringing any ideas. And if you do that, you might lose some of the most brilliant ideas. So make sure that ideas are not scrutinized at this point. At this point, ideas are just proposed and they're listed down. So then, of course, the subsequent part would be the screening and evaluation. So nothing is done here as far as evaluating the idea is concerned. So for example, this would be one of our metrics we might decide to use for screening our project. We might actually want to look at the cost of the project. Are there any risks in doing the project? Are there any return on investment in the project? Are there any hazards of doing this project? And then you give it a scale. So there we have a scale from poor all the way to excellent. Then you also we also have weights there on the extreme light. So cost has been given a weight of 20%, risks has been given a weight of 30, returns has been given a weight of 40, and hazard has been given a weight of 10. So as you can see, return is the most dominant item that we would like to look at. So maybe for the particular project that we are looking at, the cost would be is fair, and then maybe the risk is good, maybe the return is very good, and maybe the hazard is fair. So then if you score that using a simple formula, which would be our fair for 2 times the percentage, the weight, plus everything else for the risk, return, and hazard, you get a score of 3.1. So that's just a simple way to actually score the project. So you do this for each and every project so that you see, then you can list the scores and see which ones have done well. So of course, the closer they are to excellent, the better it is for you. So that of course was, what we are saying there was some of the criteria that you could actually use. So additional criteria you could use are what you can see listed here. It might be investment, which is cost, rate of return, the risk, likelihood of profit, payback. It might be competition, similarity to existing business. It might be life expectancy. It could be flexibility. It could also be environmental impact, and so many more criteria. So depending on what project you are doing, these criteria can vary widely. So let's take a look at example. So So let's assume our goal is to reduce vehicular pollution in the city. And the projects we're looking at doing is restrict vehicle registration of new vehicles as one of the projects, enforcing stricter emission regulation for vehicle as another way to actually curb pollution, then ban diesel run vehicles on the road, introduction of mass rapid transport system for the city, then encouraging carpooling so that instead of 4 people using 4 cars, we can have 4 people using 1 car, then growing more trees, then declaring no traffic zones in the city, so you can designate certain areas for maybe cycling or even pedestrian traffics. Then you can also look into banning vehicles 10 years and older. So this might be our list of projects that will come. There are others that you can actually consider, such as encouraging the use of electric vehicle and so on and so forth. But let's for now assume that these are the 8 projects that have been proposed. So of course, the next thing to do is to actually screen the ideas. So it's to select the criteria for screening the ideas, such as the effectiveness of achieving our objective, the cost of proposal, ease of implementation, time needed, and so on and so forth. So you have to develop a criteria that you want to actually use to determine which of our 8 projects that you want to do. So for example, let's say that our scale of evaluation, and the criteria that we are looking at would be effectiveness, cost, implementation, and time. And this is from very poor all the way to excellent. So for effectiveness, for example, effectiveness, very poor would be low and excellent would be high. For cost, very poor would be high cost and excellent it would have a low cost. For implementation, very poor it would be hard to implement, and excellent would be easy to implement. Then for time, very poor would be maximum time or long time, and excellent would be minimum time or a short time. So based on that, we can draw now the list of how the project will be scored. So whereby we have on the first column, so this would be the first column would be effectiveness, this one. Then that would be the cost, and that implementation, time, then total. So for example, let's say restrict registration of new vehicle. So the effectiveness gets a score of 3, cost gets a score of 1, implementations gets a score of 1, and time gets a score of 2, giving a total of 7. So then enforcing strict emission regulation for the vehicle. So that one we give effectiveness a cost of 4. Then we give cost a cost of 5. Then implementation a cost of 4. Then time a cost of 5, giving us a total of 18. Then ban diesel vehicles on the road. We give effectiveness a cost of 3. And then cost a value of 1. Implementation of value of 1. and time a value of 2. And we continue so on for all the projects. So of course, this is based on some your understanding of the actual project in terms of the, for example, effectiveness. So restricting registration of vehicle would have a medium kind of weight, or rather medium kind of effect in the effectiveness of pollution as opposed to, for example, introduction to the mass rapid transport system, which would actually have a higher rate since it actually reduces the number of vehicles since more people are using a singular kind of vehicle. Then, of course, from the results, we can now get our top 3 projects. So in our case, from the list, we have the enforce strict emission regulation for vehicle with 18 points, encourage carpooling with 5 points, and then there is growing of trees with 3 points. So to summarize this, project identification is generally done by brainstorming. Then broad objective guide the brainstorming. So we have to have our, as we mentioned, the objectives, the brainstorming, then we have our list of projects. Then introspection is necessary to identify our strength and the weakness of the systems. And extrospective view provides new opportunities and threats. And then remember, evaluation of ideas is suspended during brainstorming. Here we are just listing the projects to get as many ideas as possible. So screening is what would be done subsequently after all the projects have been listed. Any questions so far? Okay, now I want us to look at the next one, which is project appraisal. So we've already done the first part, that is project identification. Now we have our list of projects. Now we need to appraise these projects so that we can narrow down to the one that we want to do. So project appraisals determine the effectiveness of the project and make sure that you are in fact choosing the right kind of project for implementation. So the project appraisal is a necessary part of preparing a project feasibility report, which studies whether a project is worthwhile with respect to demand, financial implication, social economical impact, and ecological considerations. So based on what we've just said above, project appraisal can be divided into market appraisal, technical appraisal, financial appraisal, social economical appraisal, and ecological appraisal. So we can take a look at this a bit in more details. So market appraisal identifies the market for the product. It focuses on answering two broad questions. So question one, what would be the aggregate demand for the proposed product? Who are the customer? What is the nature of the demand? So here we want to know what the demand for this product is. Because if there's no demand for the product, there is no point in doing that project. Number two, what would be the market share of the project under proposal? Who are the players in the system? So here we are looking from a company point of view. If we undertake this project, what percentage of the market will we hold? Is it a small percent? Is it a minority percent? Is it a majority percent? So those are some of the key elements that need to be actually addressed. The demand and the share. So for example, let's look at two scenarios where we have actually a new and an existing and new product. So from the first product, from the first graph, this is actually the existing product. So the trend is kind of known. It's actually for this particular one of ours, it has been stable up to the dotted line, which is now. Then from there, we need to know, will it go up? Will it remain stable? Or is it on a downward trend? Now, it being an existing project, you can actually consult on the projections since you have the numbers to actually enable you to get a good prediction of where the particular product would be going. Now, for new, this is a bit more challenging because now here, before now, there is no reference. So now based on so you have to be based on possible problems, you can project whether it will go up, down, or remain steady. And of course, as you do the project, you'll realize what people want, which will enable you to actually do changes in the project as you go on. And this would be a key element we'll mention later with the flexibility of your particular project. How easily can you actually adjust to the needs of the people? So here we look at some of the issues of market appraisal. So one of them is past and current market trend, as we've seen with the graph that we've just previously seen. So the trend could be erratic. Maybe it goes up this month, then next month is down. The following month it overshoots, and so on and so forth. Or maybe it's stagnated, it's just stationary at a certain point. Some could be increasing, could be decreasing. Then there is past and current supply position. So is there a shortage? Is there an abundance? Or rather, was there a shortage? Was there an abundance? Do you expect shortages in the future, or do you expect an abundance? And these are usually influenced by other variables such as availability of material and so on and so forth. Then, of course, production possibilities and constraints. So, what's your ability to actually produce, and what constraints do you actually have? Then, of course, if you're looking at a larger market, or even in terms of raw materials, we look at imports and exports. Another issue that you might want to look at in market appraisal is the nature of your competition in terms of what's their capacity and also what's the nature of competition. So, for example, in the nature of competition, I don't know if any of you remember the soda called Softer. So, if you remember, Coca-Cola was in a habit of actually buying their bottles and breaking those bottles to actually stifle that competition. Because Coca-Cola is saying that these people are making a lot of money because their drinks are cheaper and everyone wants them. So to stifle that competition, they decided to buy their bottles and break them, which makes the production process of software become very difficult. Hence the collapse. So what's the nature of the person that you are competing again? Or are they also innovative in terms of their products? Do they generate new products every month, or what's going on? Then the next item is cost structure. So how do the prices respond to the demand, or how do the demand respond to the prices? So it's either the price will, so if of course, simple case, demand goes up, price goes up. Demand goes down, price goes down. But in everything, there's a limit to how low your price can come. A good example of this price demand kind of logic would be actually in the transport. During rush hour, it costs much more than off peak. Then, of course, elasticity of demand. So other issues could be customer behavior that you look in the market appraisal. What are the motivations of the customers? What would actually motivate them to actually buy that product? Do they have an attitude to certain products? For example, some people will pick a brand of another brand, and not necessarily because it's bad, it's just because they like a particular brand, which is also covered under preferences. What do you like? So they might be equally as good, but you just like this other one. Then, of course, customer requirement. Again, back to our detergent that we looked at there at the other side. Do they have it in the quantity that you want? Does it fall under your budget, or is it over? Then the other thing that we can look at is actually the distribution channels, which can actually be affected by market policies. So this would be how you would actually distribute your products and where you can actually distribute them. I'm sure, for example, you've seen some products that are for African market, products that are for European market, product that are for the Americas market. So all those are influenced by actually the market policies in those areas. Another factor to consider in micro appraisal, an issue would be administrative, technical, and legal constraints that you may encounter while you're doing your market appraisals. Now, the next appraisal that we look at is the technical appraisal. So here we're looking at the engineering aspects of the project, and it focuses on two major issues: whether prerequisites for the success of the projects have been considered, as in, is the project viable from a technical perspective? Then good choices with respect to the location, the size, processes, machine, and so on and so forth. So those are some of the factors. These are the factors that could actually influence the technical appraisal. So for example, a factory cannot just be built anywhere. So even where you built it, are you polluting the area, and so on and so forth? We'll even come to discuss this a bit more when look at the ecological angle. So when you continue with the technical appraisal, there could also be preliminary tests and study. For example, soil tests for building. So your building, is the soil strong enough to sustain, or the ground strong enough to sustain my building? So for example, if I'm building next to the sea, where there is a lot of water seeping to the soil, and it is unstable, what will I do to actually counter that? Or shall I move somewhere else? Then, of course, availability of raw material, power, and other inputs. So that also affects your technical appraisal. So how available are these for you to actually achieve the goals? Then, of course, optimal scales of operation. Then choice of a suitable production process. I did mention SOP at some point, standard operating procedures. So you need a procedure that is suitable for you to actually be able to meet your goals. So, and of course, these are processes that are developed over the years and polished over the years as you do more and more projects. So you develop procedures for doing various things. Then, of course, choices of appropriate machines and equipment. So depending on the project you are doing, you need to choose the appropriate machine to actually perform the project. So you don't choose a shovel for trying to dig the trenches when you're building a house. You actually need a mattock to do that, or even an excavator, depending on the size of the house. So choose the appropriate machinery and equipment for the job. Otherwise, it makes the job take unnecessarily long. Other issues can be affluent and waste disposal. So maybe the particular project that you are working on uses chemicals, and once the chemicals have been done, how are they disposed and where are they disposed? What government policies or regulations are you supposed to observe when you actually need to dispose these waste products? Then proper layout of plants and buildings. So for example, let's say you have vehicle plant. So every stage of the vehicle should be in a particular order. You don't want to be in such a situation where I have built the vehicle all the way to the end, then painting is back at the beginning. That doesn't make sense. So that layout, the layout has to be in a certain order to make sure that you can do the project in an efficient way. Then, of course, realistic work schedule. And realistic falls both ways. So you don't want it too short, you don't want it too long. Otherwise, you might also realize that you might take too long and the project is overtaken by newer technology. Then, of course, socially acceptable technology. And our usual example, M-Pesa. So M-Pesa does very well in Kenya, but in other countries, it doesn't seem to work very well as it does here. Financial appraisal. Financial appraisal looks at two major outcomes. Can the project service its debt? Will the project meet your return on investments? Financial appraisal often talks about a number of things. So investment and phasing of the total cost. So of course you might get some money, but usually the money that you need for a project does not come at once. It's highly likely it will come in phases. So as you meet various milestones, you get the opportunity to actually get more finances to actually continue with the project. Then means of finance. So are you financing it from your pocket? Is it from donors? Is it from loans? And so on and so forth. Then the cost of capital. So how much do you actually need to start the project? In terms of what materials do you need to buy? Are there any tools that you need to buy? How many the people that you need to hire, and so on and so forth. So those are the costs that needs to be considered in the cost of capital. Then we also need to look at the projected profitability. How profitable is this project? And this is, we're looking at projects that are for commercial gain. Of course, this does not apply to philanthropic projects. Then, of course, you have to consider the break even. So that is at what point will you start making profit? So how long will it take you to get to the point that the particular product that you've actually done is actually making you profit? Would it be 6 months? Is it 3 years? And so on and so forth. Then, of course, cash flow of the project. So how is cash coming in and going out in the project? So, for example, how are my investors, how are the investors giving me money? How is the bank giving money? And so on and so forth. And how is it being utilized in terms of expenses? So is it stagnating? Am I asking for a lot of cash, then I'm not using it now? Or is it that I'm waiting for cash to actually do the project? So you need to make sure the cash flow is balanced, whereby cash comes in and you purchase or pay for whatever expenses that needs to become and there is no money that is just hanging around, but cash is actually flowing. Then is the investment worthwhile? What's the net present value of the project? Then what's the internal rate of return? What is your payback period? So these are the things that you need to consider to see if the investment is worthwhile. Then what is your loan returning capacity, especially if the finances are coming from a financial institute, which will require you to actually pay back the financial the institution. So what is your capacity to actually pay back that loan? Then of course, what's the level of risk for this particular project? Is the risk, is it going to work, or will it fail somewhere? So you have to weigh the risks. Then social economic appraisal. So social economic appraisal is concerned with issues affecting the society at large. These are things such as displacement of people with projects. So we're talking about projects such as maybe dam construction or even road construction, whereby they need to construct a road through somewhere and they need land, so they have to displace some people or pay them to actually purchase the land from them. Impact of project on distribution of impact of project on distribution of income in the society. So how is the project going to affect the income of the people there? Is it a construction project whereby you will get casual and skilled laborers to actually do the project? Are you developing a market for governments whereby now the community can actually come and utilize it to trades on goods and services? And then related to that is impact on levels of savings and investment in the society. So will they have more disposable income so that they can actually save or invest on other ventures based on what kind of project that you are creating, such as the market one that I've just mentioned? Then the other thing we look at is the ecological appraisal. So this is concerned with the issues affecting the environment, such as impact on ozone layer, impact on air pollution, impact on water, noise impact, impact on vegetation, and impact on human life. Most of this actually fall under industrial projects. So how are they going to actually affect the environment? Are they going to pollute the environment? So to summarize that on the project appraisal, a project feasibility report basically includes market and demand analysis, the technical analysis, financial analysis, social economic analysis, ecological analysis, and impacts on humans. So these are the items that will be used to generate your feasibility report. So now the diagram here shows us the various stages. You can see it has been corrupted. So the first part here, whereby we have the first line going up, this is the screening, whereby the ideas are generated and they go into a funnel. So at this point we have a lot of ideas. So they come very many ideas, then we go to the next point. So which is between these 2 points. So that's the project appraisal. So this is the point whereby we are shortlisting the projects based on the criteria that we've just mentioned above, to do with finance, to do with environment. So that is what is actually used to shortlist the project. And then of course, finally, we do the project selection from the shortlisted project. Yes, and I think that's it for today. Any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, we can meet next Monday. I should have an assignment for you people on Thursday. So have a great afternoon.